Today, the existence of Iraq as a state is threatened. On the one hand, there is the risk of division. On the other, there is the threat of terrorism and the control exercised by foreign countries. To talk about the challenges Iraq currently faces, we're with the President of the Republic of Iraq, Dr. Muhammad Fuad Masum. Mr. President, you've lived in Great Britain. How did you utilise this democratic experience and how do you apply this to the situation in Iraq?
I lived in London and I benefited greatly from a democratic life and its practices. In experiencing such an active democracy, I discovered what may be the future of Iraq when it will be free from dictatorship. I also had other experiences in other countries similar to Iraq with respect to cultural diversity, and this had an influence on me as it does to those who live a long time abroad. We thought that it could be an example of what Iraq could become. And I think we find that in the drafting of the Constitution.
Today, the Iraqi state is facing political and economic crises while preparing for the Battle of Mosul.
Yes, the battle for Mosul is under military control of the chief commander of the armed forces, the Prime Minister. He works with military experts, which has enabled the army, combatants, the Peshmergas, and volunteers to make a great deal of progress. During this period, large areas were in the hands of Daesh. Now we have managed to reduce these areas. There remains Mosul, and there are military officers responsible for the planning and the execution of these missions.
There is the fear of a solution that could lead to a humanitarian disaster because there are civilians in Mosul under the control of Daesh. What are your plans to house the displaced when the battle begins?
Naturally, we are frightened because more than 1 million people are now in the city of Mosul. We must be careful because Daesh could use them as human shields. But, on the other hand, there are, to some extent, preparations which are not definitive to receive those displaced people. And what caused the delay of the Battle of Mosul is that we had to take into account the population to avoid serious humanitarian disasters.
Mr. President, do you think that given the current situation in Iraq, it will be possible to defeat Daesh?
There is trust and confidence in the ability of the army, the police, the mobilization units and the Peshmerga. Now they are fighting against Daesh with great skill. On the ground, Daesh forces are declining in many regions.
Can we really speak of an Iraqi Authority given the presence of Turkish military forces, Americans and Iranians on Iraqi territory?
All of these forces, with the exception of Turkey, came with the authorization of Iraq. From the outset, we have appealed to the allied countries to provide assistance to Iraq, experts, weapons and humanitarian support.
There are still Turkish military forces in the north of Iraq who were there without the permission of the executive government. Do you think it will have an effect on your relationship with Ankara?
The arrival of these forces without real authorization from Iraq is subject to condemnation. We worked hard and established many contacts with Turkey to withdraw its troops until the introduction of a Turkish delegation in Iraq. We formed a joint committee to oversee the withdrawal of the troops, but officials in Ankara refused that withdrawal.
Some are calling for a referendum to decide the fate of the region of Kurdistan in Iraq. As the president of all Iraqis, how do you feel about this matter?
This referendum is not directly equivalent to a declaration of independence. A declaration of independence requires an understanding as well as an agreement with Iraq. It's the same thing with other countries in the region.
What is the position of Iraq with respect to tensions between Riyadh and Tehran?
They are not in agreement on many issues. But as for us, we are neither on the side of Saudi Arabia against Iran, nor on the side of Iran against Saudi Arabia.
On Syria, what's your position regarding the war, seeing as there are also Iraqi militias fighting on Syrian territory with Assad?
There are volunteers who go to Syria, but unofficially, without the permission or the authorization of the Iraqi government. This is to be expected because in Europe, too, there are people who go there to join Daesh. Others come to Iraq or go to Syria to fight Daesh.
What's your vision for the future of a post-Daesh Iraq?
It is necessary to facilitate reconciliation between communities so that quarrels and disputes do not take root. This task is very serious. It's not easy. It requires meticulous work and devotion to the idea of reconciliation. Thereafter, we will begin the reconstruction and erase the traces of the fighting that's destroyed much of Iraq.
Mr. President, Dr. Muhammad Fuad Masum, thank you for joining us in the Global Conversation.
أهلا وسهلا.